Hello and welcome. With her famous dimples, quirky smile and sharp mind, she's managed to stay at the top of the Bollywood A-list of movie stars, in spite of the competitive nature of the Indian film industry. This week on One, meet the talented and super smart Preity Zinta. Never one to hold her tongue on important social issues, she's got a name for herself as one of the smartest actresses in the Indian film industry. Even the roles Preity Zinta accepts often go beyond the simple song and dance for which Bollywood is famous. For example, playing the part of an abused wife in the acclaimed director Deepa Mehta's Heaven on Earth, a film focused on the horrors of domestic violence, usually a taboo subject in Indian culture. Zinta, a self-confessed tomboy as a child, coped with family tragedy at the age of 13 when she lost her father in a bad car accident in which her mother was seriously injured. On top of the feisty activism for which she's known, Preity Zinta is respected for having achieved such heights on talent and effort alone in an industry where stars traditionally come from acting families and have the advantage of high-level connections. Now armed with a degree in criminal psychology, the star actress is one that few dare to challenge in serious debate. Preity, I'm glad to have a chance to chat with you.
It's always a pleasure to be back.
Thank you. You're considered one of the more intelligent, intellectual women in the Indian film industry. With Bollywood the way it is, do you get a chance to exercise that intelligence as much as you'd like?
Well, thank you for the compliment. Of course, I think finally it's happening with the multiplexes coming in, with the newer people coming in. Different kinds of movies are being made. Films are not just centered where you need a hero and a heroine. Today, films are about characters. So you can actually go out there and it's not just about being pretty and dancing well, but you can actually do things with a lot more substance and a little more experimental. And try something different, which was not possible 10 years ago.
Now, you've also got a reputation for speaking out. You speak your mind, which is good. But does it cause you problems there? Are people willing to listen?
Yes. Sometimes people say, like, why do you have to get into this issue? There's certain people who call up and say, you know, this is a political matter. A political party will say, please don't get into this. And I think it's quite exasperating sometimes because in India, there are so many issues. And sometimes there's a herd mentality among people. So you just have to sometimes just go there and say what you have to.
I'll get onto some of that stuff in a moment, but you're quite something of an astute businesswoman. You're almost like a sports mogul with a co-owner of a cricket team, the Kings 11 Punjab. How did you get involved with that?
Well, it was my dream to make a sports school in India. When I was very young, my dad and me, we would always talk about, he was completely into sports, and he, besides swimming, because I came from the mountains, I did every sport. And we wanted to make this school, and after he passed away, it was my dream to make this big school and have the best facilities, but for underprivileged children. Because in a population of 1 billion, and in the Olympics we win 1 gold. I mean, we always have this joke, India won 1 gold and I'm just coming back. So that, you know, you don't have to talk about anything else. So I really wanted to do that. And before that, this bid came for the IPL, which is the Indian Premier League, and for cricket clubs. So I thought it would make it so much easier if I got into that, being such a popular sport, and then branch out. So that's how.
Now, of course, you know, your bread and butter is the Indian film industry. And as an insider, how do you judge the way it's evolved? I know you're saying the culture is changing, but do you still feel that it's getting a sense that can let it compete internationally?
Well, yes, I would say in the 50s and 60s, we made our best movies. 70s was okay, 80s to me was the worst phase of Indian cinemas, disco, 80s and early 90s, woof. And then the single screen culture changed to multiplex culture. You see, you must understand that India films are made for Indian audiences. A lot of these people, of course, there are a lot of educated people, but there are a lot of people who are not educated. Their lives are very difficult or simple, and they love escapist films. So there's really no point in making a film and saying, oh, people in the West are going to love it. And nobody likes it in India because they can't understand it.
Right.
So you have to make, it's demand and supply. You have to make a film for what people want to see, which is big, escapist, music, dancing, singing. But there's a lot of change happening now because, as I said earlier, the whole multiplex culture has come in. And people look at it and say, okay, I'm spending X amount of money, and this is the kind of film I want to make because it has to do well. If you want to take that chance and say, okay, I'm going to make a different kind of film and try it in the West, that's a different thought process altogether. So yes, there's been a lot of change and lots of new films coming out, lots of different styles of filmmaking. So I think this is the most exciting time for India.
Now, you've got a good reputation, but when the critics are harsh, does it hurt?
Of course. I'm as human as anyone else. But you take it, as I say, I take the criticism with a pinch of salt. I take the praises with a big smile. And when it gets too much, I just say, decrease your carbon footprint, and I put the computer off. And I don't get too much, I don't take anything too seriously.
Of course, people will judge you by the roles you pick or the way you approach things. Is there anything that's taboo for you? Is there any roles or any kind of storylines that you'd steer clear of?
As of now, no, not really. I mean, I don't think that this is a character I don't want to play. It's always a script. Sometimes you read a script and you say, wow, this is what I want to do. And sometimes you read a script and say, no. So the role is a very small part. It's eventually a script.
Let's take you back to your childhood. You were born in the Simla district of Himachal Pradesh. What was it like in that time? It was, of course, far removed from the hustle and bustle of Bollywood. You were a little tomboy. What was it like?
Yes, it was great. I think mine, probably ours was the last generation that had innocence when we were growing up, because we didn't have cell phones and we didn't have too much of, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have cable television, we had one channel. So we did things like, you know, all the kids would go out and play games and run around and be naughty, but we didn't have that much awareness. So there was a more purest way of living, simpler way of living. Today's kids, oh my God, there's too much information they have. I mean, the kind of questions you get asked, I'm like, wow, you know, when I was a kid, I was such a Dumbo. But I grew up with lots of boys. So I climbed trees, I played marbles, I beat up the boys, and it was great.
It's very sad. Your father passed away when you were 13 years old. Your mother was very badly injured in that car accident too.
Yeah.
You describe it as a turning point. You had to mature very quickly. To what degree does it linger or haunt you now?
Well, I think I always try to think that you should always take the positives out of something that's negative. But sometimes I think about it that, oh, you know...
you were 13?
Yeah, but it's more like before you can even think of living without a person, you get used to it. You know, you think, I cannot do this, I can't live without a person. That incident taught me that what you think, that I can do this or I cannot do this, it's so small. Like, I never even thought that I could live a life without my father in my life. But I got used to it, and I did. Though I always think if he was alive, I don't know if I would choose this path of life. I would maybe be a politician, you know, because my family was very keen on me being a politician, because when I was born, they said she'd be really famous. So my grandfather was like, he's going to make her a politician. Thank God.
Well, your father was an army officer, Durganand. He was.
Yes.
What was your relationship like with him? I know he was strict, wasn't he?
Yeah, he wasn't that strict. I was very scared of him. I mean, he'd just look at me and I'd go, because he used to really pamper me. But I think he was one of the most philosophical, the most intelligent men I think existed in his times, because we come from a very conservative Rajput family. And I think somewhere he knew he wasn't going to be there, because he always taught me to be independent. He always taught me to stand for what I believe and said, it doesn't matter, you know. One thing he also taught me was don't fight with the whole world against your brothers. Because that's the only time I got a little smack on my face once, because I sided up with all the other boys and said, "Rrr," to my elder brother. And that was the only time he was upset. But he was very liberal, and he actually told me, you know, I want you to have a career, I want you to do things for yourself, I want you to be financially independent, which was great, because you are a product of your upbringing.
What characteristics of him are in you?
Well, he was very outgoing, And it didn't matter if he had to stand up against 50 people. If he was convinced about it, he would. And when it was winter, he'd get a cold the fastest. And when it was summer, he'd be like, oh, it's hot. And that's exactly me. And of course, I've got his dimples and his face.
What about your mother, Nilprabha? She was actually in bedridden for about 2 years after the accident.
Yes.
What reflection is there of her in you?
Well, I wish I had more of my mum in terms of her face. That would have been nicer. But my mum is, I think she's one of the strongest woman I've ever seen in my life, and with a lot of integrity and a lot of elegance. I still lack way behind. I mean, to bring up 3 children, it doesn't matter if you have money or not, but, you know, to physically not be fit, to never make you feel that, you know, how difficult her life is, because she lost my father very early. She was very young. She was 35, 36, I think. And that's really, really young. And she's always been, whenever, you know, sometimes she's my mom, so obviously I'm not going to hide anything from her, but, you know, I'd come back and start bitching about something and go, she's always taught me to look at the positive side, to not get into the negativity. She's never added to it or, you know, tried to live her life through me. She's always let me choose. And she's the most beautiful part about her, she's a true mom. You know, she's always there supporting me. And of course, when I'm wrong, she tells me off, which is great, because I think she's the one who's actually kept me very grounded.
Was the Indian sort of film, were Indian films a part of your staple diet in the family? Did you also watch?
No. I watched about 3 films. My staple diet was sports. Film was something, we didn't have television. I mean, we had a television, but we didn't have any channels on TV. Yeah. So we'd watch Krishi Darshan and things like that, which is about you know, agriculture, and which is so boring. Who'd watch that? And as kids, you don't want to watch the news because it goes over your head. And only on Sundays, I was in boarding school, so I went to a British Irish convent where, of course, I saw Mary Poppins and Ben-Hur and films like that in school. At home, the 3 months I had with my family, it was always about outdoor stuff. You know, he'd wake me up at 5, and, you know, and then my dad was in the army, of course. There were times he was at this place where there's a commando course, so I would also go and try to do the water jump. So it was always about sports.
We're going to take a short break here, back with Preity Zinta in just a moment.